I made him a deal. I said, if we do that test and it breaks anything on our system, which I don't think it will, it didn't on the other ones that the door failed. Our system was fine because they're spring loaded and there's technology in our system to absorb an impact. But I said, if anything breaks on our system, I will replace it, and I won't charge you for it, but I get to record the video. The biggest, I mean, it's the biggest challenge to us is it's kind of easy, right? We know we have the best system out there. So some of it is, why are you even looking at a different system? Why are you looking at something that has to work when the door fails? Get something that's already in place, so if the door fails, it's going to catch it. It's going to stop it. It's already in place.
Aaron, welcome to Manufacturing Insiders. Excited to have you and talk about your product development project. Not a lot of people are able to take an idea from kind of concept to production and then to actually have a lot of success in the marketplace. So kind of wanted to pick your brain today about how you got here. So SJK Machine is a machine shop, pretty standard machine shop offerings. How did this all come about? You just had an idea one day and decided to make a product?
So we had a customer that we did a lot of projects for. We worked with them all the time. They're a pretty big electric company. They make control boxes for various power companies throughout the country. They have a lot of overhead doors, and they keep them open during the summer. And just so happened that one of their doors failed. I believe a spring broke and then caused strain on the cable, so the cable ended up breaking.
Yeah.
And the door slammed to the ground. I believe it caught a employee on the shoulder. Luckily, in that case, it wasn't a serious accident,
Yep.
hospital time and whatnot. But nonetheless, the door failed, slammed to the ground, and they came to us wondering if we had anything that could hold the door up in the case where a door fails, or see if we could come up with an idea to help them out. So they have a problem, they came to us and see if we can provide a solution for them. And then we basically started designing an idea up at that point. And we talked about a couple different methods of supporting the door, and we came to the conclusion that supporting the bottom of the door to the floor would be the best way to do it, and to have a system that would be in place already. Yep. As the doors open, not something that would have to mechanically move once it senses that the door failed.
Right. And so do I understand this correctly? So did they kind of fund the first iteration of this, or how did that work?
Yeah, they sort of. I mean, we put a lot of time, thought, and design work into it. I would not say that they, really funded us for the development of it, but
right.
They did, we did in turn charge them for the product, obviously. But yeah, I think internally it was definitely a wash for us.
Right. At least to start. Yeah.
They're just a good customer, and we wanted to try to help them out. There was nothing, we didn't see anything out there in the market for supporting an overhead door if it failed.
Right.
So that, that's how it started.
Yeah. And getting into the marketing side of things, we did start to talk about some other products on the market, and I think this is an important thing to talk about, because I think a lot of people come up with an idea, and in a lot of cases they can ignore competition. And so they think they have this great idea, but then they look into it and they're like, oh yeah, there's other products, but I can do mine better. And so then they move down that road, but then you're getting into a market with a lot of competition. It's really hard to penetrate. I guess what made you look at the market out there, look at the products that do exist that have a similar function, and say we can definitely do it better. We can definitely sell our product.
Well, we did find that there was two products out there. There was a lever that you would mount, higher up on the track, and it actually comes with a rope, and you open the door and you pull this lever in with the rope, and yeah, that gives you something up there, but knowing how much force and how quick these doors fall, that's gonna rip. It's chintzy.
Right.
It's gonna rip right off the track. That is not gonna stop a door. Even if you had two of them and you put them on each side of the track,
Yep.
I still do not see that stopping a door, especially the large industrial doors, roll up doors. We've worked with doors out there that are windproof, hurricane proof, so they got different supports in them, and it's just a bunch of added weight. Would they work for a residential door? Maybe, but definitely not in an industrial side of things. There is also another, I don't know the technical term for it, but it's a type of knife system that the cable weaves in and out, and if the cable loses tension, these knives jam into the side of the track. That's used for obviously a cable lift style door, so more of a sectional door. Roll up doors don't have those cables.
And it has to activate, right? It has to activate when the door falls.
Exactly. It has to work when they're slacking that cable. We actually had a project maybe a year and a half ago out west in Washington State and Idaho, where we installed our systems over top of the knife system because they had a door that failed and the knife system didn't work, so they didn't trust it. Which goes back to when we originally designed these, and you have the support from the bottom of the door to the floor. That's a very strong way to keep a door up in the air and not have it slam to the ground.
Right. And just to provide a little context on the market need for this product, what was that number that we kind of throw around? Is 20,000? I think it was 20,000.
Yeah, it's 20. I mean, it depends on what reports you read into. I've seen anywhere from 20,000 significant accidents to 40,000 significant accidents per year, just in the workplace.
Wow.
So that doesn't.
I didn't even realize that. So that doesn't even count residential.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's huge. I mean, so this is something that any company that has an overhead door that employees walk in and out of, including a fire door, which I think we'll talk about in a minute, they should have this device to protect those workers.
Yeah, and we get a lot of feedback from companies saying, well, the employees aren't allowed walking under an overhead door. There's in some cases there's a man door beside every overhead door, but I've been to a lot of these facilities. I was just in the last 2 weeks at a facility down in Puerto Rico that is by far the most strict EHS facility I've ever been to, and even there I'm seeing hundreds of times a day people walking under the overhead doors, whether they're carrying a trash can, or anything, something that won't fit through the man door, or it's awkward to get through the man door. They open the overhead door and they walk under it. Yeah. Are they allowed to do it? No, but they still do it. So
Sure.
you're still going to have it happen.
Right. So, yeah, and it would be interesting to know how many overhead doors fail every year when an accident doesn't happen. I mean, the numbers must be astronomical.
Yeah,
If there's
it's
20 to
a
40,000 injuries, like how many times does it happen when there's not an injury?
right. Or, no one's around, or, we've had other projects where they're actually installing them because the overhead door fell on a asset. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we have systems installed at a aerospace company because they had an overhead door fall on a jet engine.
Oh man.
And, I was told when I was there it destroyed $20 million. So,
Jeez.
you
It's worth the
you
investment.
have that. I mean, obviously the most important is your personnel, employees or visitors, or just people in general. But there's other uses for it too.
Yeah. Yeah, and imagine the bad impression that causes. You're hosting a potential customer, and they see that happen. Wow.
Yeah,
Uh,
we had another project too where it was a rush project because it was at a gold mine in Canada, and they were having a company gathering or training or something, and the only way to so in that case, the doors of the building that they were in, there wasn't man doors, and they were going to keep the overhead doors open. So they wanted the system so everyone visiting there wasn't exposed to a potential accident.
yeah, absolutely. So tell me about how you go from, okay, this customer just asked us to make this product for their use case, to, okay, this is a really good idea that we should consider taking to market. Like, how does that conversation go?
Well, it so we originally made the systems, we installed them at the local company. They even maybe uh they added some elements that we didn't originally have, like a green light and a red light. A green light if the arms are engaged, a red light if they weren't. So they added some of those elements, but it came down to that we just saw that we had a really good idea and that there was a potentially a good market for it. This was when we first developed it. It was back in 2018 or 19, and then we knew we wanted to pursue it, but then COVID hit. So you had to get through the COVID year, and so we really started coming up with the ideas to make it a little bit better, make it more appealing, and to start to market it in late 2021, early 2022 is when we really so it's a new product, especially with kind of that COVID pause in it from further developing it. It originally was just a manual system, with levers you would uh, crank down by hand, to set it in place. And then we started to develop an automated version where it works completely integrated within the opener that you have. Then you have a customer that, well, we open the door with a remote. So now you got to figure out how to make the system work with a remote. And over time, you just make it that much. It keeps getting better and better, and
Right, right, right. Yeah,
just
and you're
all
constantly
kinds
on
of different things
duplication.
that the customer's thrown at us with, different ways that they operate the doors. And now you got to figure out how to make your system work with their facility.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's what's been amazing to me watching you guys progress through this is, just last week you told me the story about, somebody wanting this for a fire door, and it's
Yeah.
got to activate when a temperature is achieved in the facility.
Yeah, exactly. So we had fire doors specifically are usually open, and you have to have them. I don't know what the um, actual requirements are, but for so many square feet and whatnot, you have to have fire doors. So, but a lot of times they're the doors that are open a lot. And how the fire door works is, it has a fuse that with a cable system. Even for roll up doors, there's a fuse, and once the fuse melts, and there's different melting points. The facility we were at, it was 165 degrees. So that fuse melts, and then it releases the door, and the door slams to the ground in the event of a fire, so it doesn't spread.
Right.
Well, this door in particular, they keep it open, and they wanted the safety support system on that door. So we had to figure out how to make it work with the fire system.
Right. Because now your product needs to not function when that fusion.
Well, exactly? Because the function of our product is to stop the door from slamming to the ground.
Right.
So in this case, we need the door to close. So we have to get our supports that are on each side. We have to get them out of the way. If we don't get them out of the way, it's going to support the door and keep it open. So we used a temperature probe and programmed our system as it reads a certain temperature, which can be adjusted to whatever the customer wants. It can be adjusted all the way down to, I think it's negative 30 degrees. So negative 30 to, I think, 550 degrees Fahrenheit. That's anywhere in that range. It'll send a signal. It'll retract the arms, and it'll actually close the door with the opener. So the door won't even, the fuse, let's say the fuse, it's a 165 degree fuse, and we set our system at 150 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually going to close the door before the fuse breaks, which isn't going to let the door slam to the ground. So it could potentially protect the door.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So when the fuse breaks, the door it's made to slam to the ground.
Right.
But now with
That's really
our system having a temperature probe, it sends a signal just to close the door. So, at that facility, we set our temperature probe to 150 degrees. So at 150 degrees, arms retract and the door closes.
So theoretically, this could completely replace the old fuse system.
It could, yeah. And even working with the overhead door company down where we were, there's another added benefit too, is the fuse is always on the side that the door opens from. So, your fire door is going to protect two separate buildings, right? The fuse is always on the side where the door rolls up or the door opens. It's always on that side. It's never on the other side of the door. Well, because you can't run cables over there. There's nothing on that side that there's no function of the doors on that side. So if you have a fuse over there and it breaks, well, there's nothing to tie it into unless you're going through a wall, right? So we were talking with them down there. With our system, we can actually use two probes, and you could detect 150 degrees from both sides of the door, not just one. So there's some added benefits that make it even better than the fuse system.
That's awesome. It's crazy to think of how, a relatively simple idea, a relatively simple product could have so many use cases and so many possible benefits. It's amazing. You just wonder what other ideas are out there.
We're gonna have something that surprises us again at some point. All these doors are different. I don't want to say every single project we have, we get a curveball thrown our way, but you get curveballs thrown your way, and whether it's the fire door, the different timer systems, card readers, like a central control station where, all the overhead doors can be controlled from one station, just various items like that. And we figure out a way to make it work. You're working with a smaller company, and we're not going to just sell you the product and this is what we offer and you figure out how to integrate it within your facility. No, we'll work with you. We'll figure it out. We'll get it done.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of people out there that have an idea like this that could work, that has a lot of market value. And I feel that in most cases, probably pretty unapproachable because you guys have a lot of benefit. I mean, you can manufacture the product, you can iterate it, you can design. There's all those stages in the process that the average person probably can't do.
Right.
Just curious, have you ever considered um, helping other people bring ideas like this to market as kind of like a service?
Uh, we have. I mean, we've talked about it's. We're big on if you have a problem, you come to us with a problem and we will help you figure out a solution. So yeah, we've talked about maybe moving into to different items, but you never know. But yeah, if someone came to us and they had this idea and they just didn't know where to go with it, or they were maybe missing one piece to the puzzle, yeah, we would help them out because they have a problem and we're going to try to help them with a solution.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think you guys, I would say, I don't know what the actual percentage is here, but I would say probably 80% of the people that do what you just did failed at it. Because there's a lot involved in actually making that a success. Even if you do have a great product, then how do you market it? How do you get in front of the right people? All that kind of stuff. And so, I mean, you obviously have something. You have a skill set that not a lot of people have. And it almost could be an expansion of your business model where if you come to us with the right idea, we're going to partner with you on it. We're going to be a percentage owner in your business, but we're going to do what we're good at, which is make the
Right.
product and figure out how to market it. So, yeah, I think it's a cool idea. I actually have thought about this quite a bit myself from a marketing standpoint,
Yeah.
because that's another big barrier to entry. When people have an idea, they have a business idea, they need a website, they need their social media, they need to figure out how they're going to get people to find their product. And so you could partner with people and say, hey, listen, we'll take care of all that for you for a stake in your business.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we could come together on that. I'll do the
Yeah.
marketing, you do the part, the design, manufacturing, and then they can, be the part owner.
Yeah. I was just in, at a project last week, and we had a dinner on Friday night. We're gonna set the company up down there as a dealer, and they were asking me all kinds of. They were asking me the questions that their customers are going to ask them,
Mm-hmm.
and they wanted the answer, and it was all kinds of different scenarios for our system, and will it work with their overhead doors? And then that carried into, have you thought about designing other things maybe in a better way,
Mm-hmm.
specifically for overhead doors? And yeah, you never know what, because you can make things better. We've made our system better, it's, and I think that might be why a lot of people fail with it, is they might come up with their idea and they're kind of stuck in their way of, well, this is the best way to do it,
Right.
but as time goes on and brainstorming's big, you start brainstorming different ideas, and I will say over the last couple years we've made our systems a lot better,
Right.
in various ways. So you never want to stop like the developing side of it. You want to keep
Right.
developing it, and you can just make it a little bit better all the time. And then, you look back to 2 years ago and the first couple systems that were out there, and it's a heck of a difference from what you have now to what you had.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that, kind of continuous improvement concept that we hear thrown around a lot in manufacturing. So, I guess, do you have a physical process or, kind of a documented process for this continuous improvement? Like, how do you know when to shoot down an idea or when to invest? And I mean, obviously, it's going to take you time, effort, manpower to add a new feature to the product. How do you decide when it makes sense to do that and when it's just an idea that isn't going to fly?
Well, we don't really we don't have any model that says, let's revisit this at this time. Maybe it's time to update it now. It's more so just as time goes on and as we see different scenarios and different facilities, that we then have to figure out how to make the system work.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when we start brainstorming how to make it work. And then we come up, it's like, wow, this is a pretty slick way of doing it. So
Yep.
maybe we think about doing it this way, moving forward.
Yep.
So it's not, it's kind of,
It's customer driven. So,
it is.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's customer driven improvements is
Okay.
what it is.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Tell me about the process. So now you've got a minimum viable product, right? You got something that works in facility number one. What is your what was your thought process to how are we going to get this product to a bigger market, and kind of what decisions did you make around that?
So we wanted to, obviously with every business or product you want to grow, right? So um we're not a marketing company.
Yeah.
Honestly, I had no way to even we we've never had even any products where we've marketed. We've always had customers come to us and need parts, or need a machine that does this. The customers come to us, so you grow that customer relationship, and they trust you, and they come to you when they need, you know machine parts, automated machines, whatever it is. But they're one-offs. You're not that automated machines aren't mass produced. Obviously some machine parts are mass produced, but that's not the niche that we're in. We're in more of the precision machining job shop. A big order for us is 50 parts.
Mhm.
We get a lot of ones and twos. So this was different because this was a product and a system that we wanted to develop, we wanted to market, and we wanted to sell a lot of them. So we didn't I had no clue where to go on marketing. So we ended up finding you guys, and kind of placing our trust within you guys, to lead us the right way, to start to market it. It is a niche product, so it takes time, to get the product out there, and it takes time to make the customers understand why they need it and how
Right.
important it is.
Yep.
Safety is an ongoing development. The standards get more strict all the time. Our I know that the over some type of EHS guidelines in Canada are more strict than in the US, because we have a really big Canada market. We have a lot of systems in Canada. So, you know, but we didn't know that until we started marketing it, right?
Right.
I would have never from day one, I would have never said, well, Canada's our market, and it's not our only market, but I would have never thought that we would end up with as many systems in Canada as to me, I was thinking, well, the US has to be more strict than Canada, right? That's the way I was thinking, but I was wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was placing, you guys, we're good at designing and making things work. You guys are good at helping companies market and get the product out there. So we just placed our trust with you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's gone well. I think we both experienced some challenges with the idea that I always talk about this. The market penetration strategy is different than marketing a product that's known to the market. So market penetration is like, okay, we have a new idea, nobody knows about it. We have to sell them on the idea and then sell them the product. And so that creates a whole new set of difficulties around marketing. Like, okay, so what are they going to be looking for that's in the realm of what we're offering that we can then convince them? So it's a little bit more of a long marketing cycle. But I think we've had some really good ideas over the years, and just focusing on overhead door safety, overhead door accidents, prevention of those accidents, things like that have been pretty successful for us. And I think SEO has been great for you guys. We Google terms around overhead door stops, overhead door safety devices, things like that. Great placement, and we're kind of adding new keywords all the time. Are you seeing some good leads come in?
We are, yeah. Like you mentioned, it took time. This was not something that was gonna, I guess, I wanted it to happen fast, right? But that's not how it was going to work with this product. So it took time, and as time has gone on, yes, we've been seeing some really good leads, some big corporations, worldwide companies, and we did a project for a company that the feedback we're getting is that location was the trial, and they do want our product company wide, and they are a worldwide company. So we'll see what happens with that. They're happy. They're happy with how the systems work. We had to do some figuring out to integrate our systems within their facility, and they liked that. They liked how we worked with them and figured it out and got them working. So, yeah.
How many facilities will that be worldwide?
I don't know how many facilities, but they're in 72 countries.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you got to figure probably multiple door, I don't know, have 5, 10, 15, 20 doors. And
at least, yeah. They have they're headquartered in Chicago. And last I heard, Chicago has 700 doors.
What?
Yeah. So, and that's one facility
Holy cow.
in one country. But yeah, I think they have 12 locations in the States.
If you
so that's one country with 12 facilities. So if they're in 72 countries, and each country is not going to have multiple facilities, but some of them do. So yeah, we're talking a very large amount of business for years, because this would not be something that would happen overnight. This would be an ongoing project.
Well, and it would be smart for them to start picking away at it, because if they come to you tomorrow and say, we want, all 72 locations of these, you're gonna have to hire hundreds of people, build some new facilities. Holy cow.
Yeah, I don't know how we would handle that, but again, now we have the problem and we got to figure out the solution.
Yeah, and certainly if something like that happens, I've got a lot of relationships in the space. I think we're going to have to build some partnerships and get some other contract manufacturers involved. But that would be huge. Yeah, so it's super exciting. I think it's one of those things too. Like, we're going to see the momentum build, because the more facilities that get this in there, the more people are going to be aware of it. the more it's going to become more of a market need than a market want. And so I think it's going to be really cool to see what happens in the next few years. Are you seeing any sort of changes in the regulatory environment that will have an impact on, your sales?
I don't I don't know. It's everywhere we go. There's every company has different standards. You know, every company has different levels in their EHS program. We've seen it to where we'll have a project for our systems in the most laid back environment there is. There's hardly any EHS guidelines. And then we've been in projects where I cannot believe how strict they are.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where we have to do some like small wiring in our boxes. There's we have to use our hands for small items, and you have to wear work gloves. You don't have a choice. You can't take them off. So even though you're working with something that you can barely even feel without work gloves on, you have to have work gloves on. So I think it's more, I don't know, as far as the OSHA guidelines and all that. I think it's more company to company, and it's how exposed do they want to be to potential accidents.
Right.
And that's kind of that's what I've noticed. It's more, again, just company driven on how strict the EHS is.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And before I forget, when you were talking about that group setting that you were in, where they're asking you a bunch of questions about your capabilities in the product, that's something we really should include on the website. A really detailed FAQ. So if you can jot those down and get them over to us, we'll get those up, because I think that would be a really good addition.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there was a lot of discussion. They've been in the overhead door company for 35 years. I and that since that's been their company, right? So I think they were in the business even prior to that. So they had there was a lot of questions that were asked. Some of the same questions I've been asked before, and some that are new to their area that I haven't really been asked before. And there was a lot of good that came from it. I learned a lot, and I think that they learned that our systems can be pretty adaptable to whatever's thrown our way. We'll figure out how to program it and make it work.
Yeah. How do you balance the two different models of marketing and selling your product? So, I mean, on the one hand, you have kind of the direct to, I don't want to use the word consumer, but direct to business sort of sales, right? So, that's an individual effort every time. Then you have the other side, which you kind of have that distributor model or that sales multiplier model. Are both of those of interest to you? How are you kind of thinking about those?
Well, eventually, I would like to get to just dealing with dealers, right? Just to have dealers. I think that it helps on the service side and maybe like the on-site support, because we're located in Ohio. We do travel anywhere to install our systems, and we'll travel anywhere to troubleshoot. If we can't figure it out over the phone, then we'll get out there and we'll look at it and we'll figure it out. But on the service side of it, I think it'd be a lot easier to have a network of dealers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also potentially on the sales side of it, because now you have this network of dealers, and they not only do a lot of the selling, but they take care of a lot of the customer questions and the time spent with the customer. They take care of a lot of that. They know our product. They can answer those questions. And then that helps us to continue to develop, because
Right.
we only have so much time. We're all only one person, and I put a lot of time to this, but there's still only so much time in a day. And if that's taken up with, out of town, out of the country, working on site, troubleshooting, and, that gets, now you're not devoting that time to maybe making the product a little better or working with the next customer. So eventually I would rather have a network of dealers, but it's, it's been, we do have dealers, and we have other companies that are interested in becoming dealers, but we don't have huge territories covered with it,
Right.
so we still do a lot ourselves, because we don't want to turn away a customer by saying, no, we don't have a dealer there. So then we take care of it.
Yeah, and I think beyond just the ability to help service the customer, answer questions, do the installs, things of that nature, I think from a market awareness standpoint too, that if you could get a big network of dealers, that's going to dramatically increase our ability to just build the market's awareness of the product. So I think that'd be really powerful.
Yeah, and that also helps with like, for instance, roll up doors. A lot of the overhead door companies, they build their own roll up doors, right? They assemble them. So they're going to sell that overhead door, and whatever the specs are, they're going to assemble that in-house. So it's not going to be shipped as a complete door. No, they're going to put the slats together. A lot of roll up doors are kind of built on site too. But that helps us out, because now, our systems are custom made per order. And a lot of that has to do with, some of it has to do with how the system mounts, but a lot of it is, with the height, the fully open height of the door, that, if it's a 14-foot door, then you're going to have a 12-foot system. So you have a 16-foot door, you're going to have a 14-foot tall system. So that's how they're built to order. So if you have a network of dealers and now you're providing them parts to build the systems, and they're building as they go, then that helps you out. That helps you, because now they're taking that assembly off your plate, right?
Interesting. Yep.
So that's another reason for us too. It would be easier to grow faster with a network of dealers.
That's very interesting. Okay. What would you say has been the biggest challenge throughout this process? What's the hardest part of getting this product to market and selling it? Maybe something unexpected.
People not the biggest, it's the biggest challenge to us is, it's kind of easy, right? We know we have the best system out there. So some of it is, why are you even looking at a different system? Why are you looking at something that has to work when the door fails? Get something that's already in place, so if the door fails, it's going to catch it. It's going to stop it. It's already in place. So I think that's the biggest challenge for me, is our system's such a no-brainer, because it's, especially our automated system. You go and you hit open on the door, you open the door, and the system does everything on its own.
Right.
It's so hands off. It's just there. And so it's making customers understand how easy the system works. It's very low maintenance. If you ever have to troubleshoot, we answer the phone right away. You're not waiting on hold for a half an hour. On our box, we have a QR code with our phone number. So even it doesn't even have to be a maintenance guy. It could be anyone going to close the door and something happens. Well, you scan the QR code and you call us. We're going to answer and we're going to troubleshoot it with you. Now, if your company has certain policies in place, then that's within your company. But a lot of our systems are somewhere where there isn't maintenance. So whoever's operating the door needs to figure it out. But yeah, I would say that's the biggest challenge is that the system works so well. It's virtually maintenance free. It works on its own. It's smart. It makes sense. You support the bottom of the door to the floor. So there's just so many no-brainers about how good it is that I try to get the customer to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
And also sometimes you get the customers that just, you can show them videos and explain it to them and they still don't understand how it works. So it's like that awkward, I don't want to repeat myself again because I've already, like, I don't know any other way to explain it of how it works, you know? So you have that sometimes too, which it can be challenging because, you know, you're not trying to offend them, but it's, you know, it's just that easy. They think there's more to it, that it's not that easy. It doesn't work that easy. Well, it does.
Yeah. So I wonder if this would be something. Is there a way that you could get a hold of the two other types of systems? Like, I wonder who's actually done testing. I want to, if we put this one that's installed on the door track and drop I don't know what these doors weigh, but a large door, drop the spring. Like, if you had a video showing what happened to that track or that system when that door fell, I mean, what more explanation do you need?
Yeah, we have talked about that. And I do. I think it would be a good idea. We don't have,
I mean, it would
our
piss off some
facility here,
competition.
we don't have like huge doors, so I need to find a facility that has like a, because I would want to do it on a big door, so you know you can really see um how the systems work different. But yeah, no, it's a great idea. We've talked about it,
Well, and
and
the concern is that obviously you're going to damage the door, and then you got other problems. So, and you're going to damage the track. Like, maybe it makes more sense to just rig up a system with a weight on it. A block of steel that weighs as much as the door would, and instead of you know getting that door and potentially damaging things, maybe you just do a test with kind of a simulation, if you would.
yeah, of more like a weight comparison, or
Right.
a comparison using weight for the different types of systems. Yeah, you could, like the knife system, because of how the cable works. You know, it's, I don't know. Yeah, we could brainstorm how to do that. I do think that just customers, and especially from what I have, the people who I have met through the different EHS departments, they are very visual people. So they want to see exactly the same type of scenario and area. Like they're so visual to where I don't know, you know, in to them maybe on that they'd be like, well, I don't understand. That's just weights. That's not a door. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they're very like, they're very visual. We actually might be in a couple weeks through a facility that we have our system in. The EHS, they do a lot of testing internally,
Mm-hmm.
and they're talking about, actually, on one of those fire doors, they're talking about taking a torch to the fuse and letting the door fall onto our arms and see what happens. So they have a visual of it, and if it destroys the door, it destroys the door. They don't care. They want to see the visual of what will happen. We have tested it. We've had doors fall on our arms, so I'm very confident that it's going to work because I've seen it work, and I've told them that. But they're just so visual that they want to see the example in their facility.
Well, don't let them do that test without recording it.
I know. I told them. That's what I told him. I made him a deal. I said, if we do that test and it breaks anything on our system, which I don't think it will, it didn't on the other ones at door failed. Our system was fine because they're spring loaded, and there's technology in our system to absorb an impact. But I said, if anything breaks on our system, I will replace it, and I won't charge you for it, but I get to record the video. So they agreed to that. So we're gonna see if it happens, and if it does, I'm gonna try to go get a better camera than my phone, so I have something that's a little more clear, and because that's something that we can use. We'll definitely use that.
Especially, man, if you could test the three different types, yours and the two alternatives, and record it, that would be the most compelling piece of marketing material we could possibly get.
Yeah. Now we can work. I can work with our new dealer. We were talking about testing doors because of this customer. So they helped us at this customer's facility, and they knew that the customer, they do all kinds of drop tests. I mean, they test all kinds of things, and if it breaks, it breaks. They replace it. It doesn't matter. They just want to make sure it's supposed to work how it's supposed to work. So through that dealer, I might be able to get, the knife system and that arm, and maybe at their facility, or even, we kind of propose a comparison test within their facility. That could potentially happen. Absolutely. So yeah, that would be a good discussion to have. And because that would be really good to have, because that is, I said how EHS is very visual. Well, there you go. I can explain it all day long. Here, watch these videos. This shows you.
Yeah, you could show them what would take you a half hour to explain in about 30 seconds.
Exactly. Yep.
Well, hey man, thanks a lot for coming on today. I think what you guys are doing is so cool. I mean, it's just awesome to see somebody that's successful at taking an idea all the way through to building a great business out of it, and something that almost has unlimited growth potential. So congratulations on that. I'm glad we get to be a part of it, and wish all the best of luck to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. It was it's nice to talk about, how the system works and developed, and it's fun because we've put a lot of time and a lot of thought into it, and we want people to be aware that they have a solution to the problem with overhead doors.